Okay.
As of now, you're being recorded.
Oh.
Which doesn't mean to change anything.
Okay, so why don't you start out by introducing yourselves?
Bill Hocking.
Oh, hi. Okay, so
I'm Steve Goode.
where are you guys from?
Teach.
You're not in this one.
Go ahead.
Where do you guys teach? And where are you from? Or both?
Okay.
Or either. All right.
I live in Easton, Massachusetts,
Oh, you might want to put the headphones on so you can hear what's going on.
so I can hear what I said.
I'm just asking.
Okay, makes it better.
Okay.
Is it like too loud?
Can you hear?
Yeah,
Can you
that's
understand
fine.
that? Okay.
Continue.
I live in Easton, Massachusetts. I teach at Mansfield High School, which is in between Boston and Providence, and I grew up in Foxborough, where the Patriots play.
Oh,
May have heard of them.
Yeah. And how about you?
My name is Steve Goode. I teach in Boston at the Harbor Pilot School. I grew up in Portsmouth, Virginia. We don't have a team that plays there, but I root for the Yankees and I root for the Cowboys. You may not have heard of them here in Boston.
What subject and what level do you teach?
I teach middle school geography. I have taught AP, government and politics, and
Next year.
also U.S. history.
And how about you?
Okay. At one time I taught middle school. I taught 8th grade for a number of years. Now I teach 11th and 12th grade. 11th I teach AP U.S. history, and 12th grade I teach psychology.
Oh, that's so cool. My brother takes that.
What is one quality that defines you and that you feel proud about?
Like, what do you like?
See, I was going to say humble, but then that's kind of goes against it. Sense of humor.
There you go. That was perfect because the way you just worded that it was. Yeah.
One quality that defines me, I would put perseverance. To persevere despite any obstacle.
And I'm sure that coming to conferences like this is really beneficial to your profession. And so what are some things that you take out of these conferences and back to the educational arena? So like what do you think you can take away from these kind of conferences that can really help you with your educational
I think the conference in itself is something that is designed so teachers can come here to one, enhance their profession, their pedagogy, the practices that they use inside the classroom, their questioning techniques, meeting the new standards, the technology. I just finished a workshop with Paul on Twitter. Primary sources, which was an excellent workshop. So there are many things that you can take away. Also, last but not least, networking. There's so that you can network outside of your own school district, because this is a regional conference.
I would add to that too. Lots of new ideas, depending on which workshops I go to. The one that I did today was a supervisor's workshop because I'm also a department head, and I get a lot of different perspectives too. We get a lot of teachers from Connecticut, so that's nice to get people from other states and hear what their views are on things. So that's very helpful.
If you could plan the perfect conference, what would it be like? Who would you invite, etc.?
Like, who would be there? What would it look like?
Well, if I could plan the perfect conference, I think this conference is pretty good itself. I would say I would start first by looking at the JFK Presidential Library forums. If I could invite someone, I would take almost the list of guest speakers they've had at their forums. I'd start with that because I feel like it's who's who in American history, world history. I would start with something like that, using that format. But to give you a specific name, Meacham. John Meacham. I saw him at the JFK Presidential Library just recently. I think that would be a real good start. Paul Kennedy, who we met today here, the British historian at Yale, would also be another great candidate.
Okay, so what do you think would be like the perfect conference in your
The best professional development I've done is when we just have teachers presenting their ideas, and I can come away with classroom ideas, practical stuff that I can bring back and either copy completely or just adapt. And I like to see things that work, things that people are actually using in classrooms right now, and that's great, and that's what my teachers want. And when I get feedback, they'll say, oh, I love this speaker, they gave me this great lesson, I'm going to change it a little bit, I love the idea.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like what you can bring back to the classroom. So how do you think teachers should motivate their kids to learn in the classroom, like with new ideas and stuff? Like get them excited about learning.
I think your own enthusiasm has a lot to do with it. If you are legit very excited about whatever subject it is you're doing, and you are telling your audience this is important because, and you're doing it in a very practical way, like this is a reason why it's important to know this, or why this skill is important, and you are legit excited about it, then that's going to be contagious. It works the same way for me. When one of my students does a project or a presentation and they're really excited about it, they get everybody all jazzed up about it. So it works both ways.
What about you? How do you get students motivated to learn?
Well, I'll give you a good example. Hold your hand up.
Like this?
So you're basically holding up your one hand, and
This makes for great radio.
each one of the fingers, and he said he was humorous, so he is funny.
He is.
Let's say your index finger. This is political. Next one is social,
Social.
economic.
Economic.
Baby finger's religion.
Religion.
And we'll make our thumb real special because it's used to grip. We'll call that psychological.
Okay.
Now you have it. I'm going to give you a topic, and I want you to apply any one of those fingers to it. So if I said, what if I told you that in Ethiopia they're building a dam to bring water to the barren land and to feed their people? You would think that, well, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But what if I also told you Egypt, which is down at the end of the Nile, says if you build that dam, we're going to send planes and we're going to blow it up. And Sudan says, you know what, Egypt, you can build your bases on our territory so you won't have so far to fly to blow up those dams.
Okay. So
politically, why should that happen? What impact does it have socially?
well,
What impact does it have economically?
It can affect the relationship between the countries. It could potentially, like as they said, it could like blow it up. That can cause like a war or something, which is bad with like the relationship between the countries. Economically, it like costs a lot of money to have to go through all that anyways with the.
And due to war, it can, or battle or something, it can cause a lot of people lose their money, lose actual people. And
What are the other ones?
Well, but in the middle of the palm, you can put technology.
Technology.
In the middle of the palm, and so when you think about this, this is an actual true story. So Egypt is at the end of the Nile. This is the longest river in the world.
Yep.
So you have the two Niles meeting and joining, the Blue Nile and the White Nile, and you have Ethiopia as a source, and source of the Nile, one of the sources of the Nile. And so if they can't use the Nile and block the water for hydroelectric power, because the person at the end of the Nile won't get enough water, and their people will starve, and the Nile replenishes because it overflows. Now, it's not going to overflow. Now the farmers have to buy fertilizer when it naturally overflowed. So it brings in all of these components, and it makes you think much broader concepts than just building of a dam, hydroelectric power.
You know, my next question was going to be like how do you handle unmotivated kids, but you kind of just answered that by like just giving that great example with the hand and how you can really use that to
You have to hook them.
Think of exactly, it's all connected.
Well, you have to hook them, and I think Bill said it best, humor.
That's how you get someone's
Humor.
attention. Yeah.
And I think you need to understand where kids are at the age there. At whatever age they are, you need to understand that age. And if you do understand that age, then you'll understand their insecurities and how to make them secure. You'll understand what interests them and how to teach them. There are many ways to teach them. Sometimes we go about it the wrong way. But we must always, I call this the good hot hand. Hot meaning higher order of thinking.
So, the answer. So, how do you think classrooms should be suited to accommodate students' educational needs? Describe
Is this question to Steve or to Bill? It's to both, but which one first?
whoever would like to, whoever.
I'm not sure what the answer is, so I'll say Steve can go. No, I'm just
I like him.
Ask me the question again.
Okay, so, Bill, how do you think classrooms should be suited to accommodate students' educational needs?
So you mean like the physical classroom?
Yeah,
or the
like what should the classroom have to make us to fulfill a student's educational needs?
Well, other than making sure that there's proper space so that the kid, you want to have room within the classroom so that you can set the classroom up in different ways. If you want to have the kids moving to different corners to do different types of activities, a decent amount of space so that they're, so certainly the physical space is important. Technology is very important. Having access to technology, whether it's internet for news, information, things like that, that's important. I'm trying to think more of the physical classroom. Those would be the two big things that come to mind. Steve, what do you think?
Well, I think that those are, you start with the physical, I think. The physical classroom. You also need to think about the learning modalities of each of the individual students. I may teach you one way, and you may learn that way, but it may consider it like you're watching television. I think kids do that sometimes. At least they tell me a little bit. They told me not too much. They're doing homework. So let's say you're tuning into a channel. You can see the channel's a little fuzzy, but you can see it. It's not clear, but you can clearly see that something on that channel. That may not be a good channel for that student to learn. So you may have to switch to another channel. Maybe that student learns best if I took that activity and I had them act it out. Whereas another student, I had them create a poem, create an acrostic poem or something. Another student, they're very artistic, so I had them take this objective, since this is radio, take this objective, and because we're going to television next, and make a picture out of it. Since this is radio, take this objective and make it verbal, so that the whole radio audience can hear it. Just like this is radio, if you don't learn this way, it's probably not the best way to teach that child. So you have to take inventory of the learning of all your students.
And see, let me add to that too, and I'll get kind of philosophical now. So now that besides the physical space, we also have to think about, what do I have to offer for understanding of my students? I would say empathy, understanding. Because I teach psychology, I have a little bit of a different perspective when I have a teacher who comes to me and says, oh, this kid has an anxiety disorder, and don't you think that's overdiagnosed? And I'll say, well, you know what? That's probably a legit thing. And if a child is making that up, then that's probably an issue. So I'd say besides the physical space, one of the biggest problems we have in our schools, we have a lot of kids that have social emotional needs that interfere with their learning at school, but a lot of it we need people who can help them with that. And maybe you know of that in your school too. It's not uncommon. It happens everywhere, and that's where we usually are at a deficit. Just having something to deal with a lot of the issues that kids have that sometimes are out of our control but interfere with their ability to learn.
How can social studies help teach empathy?
Oh, that's a really great question. It's the funniest thing. It's a great question. But if you look throughout history, you look at each group of people struggling for equality. Let's look at our Constitution, we the people. In the beginning, it wasn't always we the people. It was just a few of the people. Next, it added a few more. It was just white males who had property who could actually vote. Then they started adding more people who didn't have property. But not African Americans at that time, not Asians at that time, but just people who fit a certain description. So over time, we the people has actually added more of we the people. Look at the changes that are happening right now, today, 2013. All the people that are being added to we the people for voting, for marriage, for resources, for does that person have a right as a spouse to when you pass for any of your assets. So we the people has changed. So the empathy that we need to teach is right here in front of us. We're all on this planet together. So I like to say we all live downstream and downwind. So what you do is going to come back to affect you, because people who live upstream, and that could be a metaphor, they live upstream and they think everything flows downstream. It does, but the only problem they haven't figured out is the world is a round globe.
Yeah, and I would definitely, I echo everything that Steve said there too. And then I also would add that even when we're doing lessons in class, in AP, when I have them write essays, they have to examine a little bit of what the other side is. So despite this, I still believe this. Instead of what people typically do is they'll just provide evidence for their side of it and they don't listen to what anybody else has to say. At least by examining another argument and showing, well, maybe there are weaknesses in there, but I'm actually acknowledging that there are other viewpoints out. That helps build empathy. All right, and again, exposing them to multiple perspectives. We teach in 8th grade. We've had occasional controversy because we teach about Islam, and every year I will get a parent who will call up and say, "Why are we teaching this?" And you can imagine some of the nasty things that people will actually say.
Because it's not like you're persuading them to, you're not like spreading that, you're just teaching them about it. Like, in 6th grade, we were taught, well, I don't know about you, but I was taught a little bit about like different religions, just showing different cultures, different beliefs. Like, no one really had a problem with it, but like, I can see like, there's always like someone who would like complain about like how they don't want their child learning about that, or they don't like want that being discussed in the classroom. But really, it's not like they're trying to convert anyone or do anything wrong. It's just
we do it to show, like we do it as part of Western civilization, and we'll show Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and show, well, these are some of the things that they have in common. And while they have some things that are different, there are also a lot of things that they have in common. A lot of those core beliefs have, foundations, and it helps them understand later on, conflicts, because there's a lot of religious conflicts in history. But I think the fact that we sometimes get pushback on that shows me I'm doing the right thing, because usually it's very easy to argue the perspective, because oftentimes the person is ignorant and thinks that, things about Islam that I don't know where they get the info, probably from some crazy email that they get.
Yeah, and again, it's that, to your original question about the empathy, I teach through character traits and environment. We all have the same character traits, and we have different environments, and some of us in the worst environment show our best character traits. Others show the survival character trait, what is expected. But there are others who, in the very worst environment, will show a better character trait. So to try to teach students the perspective of someone else, I think it's very important. Maybe it should be that we should all start history off by creating a character in history, and then that character follows you through your entire course that year. And that way, when your character that you're writing about each chapter or each unit, how that character interacts with the event that's happening. So how does your character interact with 9/11? And you can be any religion, any race, but how do they interact with that 9/11, and where are they on the planet interacting with that 9/11? So you have to understand their character, but you also have to understand their environment. Character traits versus environment.
So, if you could describe your dream classroom, like in any way, like what would your dream classroom look like? What would be incorporated in it? Like, what would it be like?
Ooh, my dream classroom. Well, they'd have to have a lot of money, because I think the dream classroom, I'm quite sure everyone would have an iPad. That would be my dream classroom. Everyone would have to have an iPad. Part of that dream classroom, they would all follow the rules too.
Oh.
But we would only have one rule: do only things that bring praise to you, your family, your classmates, and your teachers. So that's the only class rule. Part of that dream classroom would have to be that it would be large enough so we can do multiple activities, individual work, group work.
Field trips.
Field trips would definitely. Field trips would be definitely. Again, remember I said you'd have to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
I can teach you about any particular place, but until you go there, that's that character traits and environment. Until you actually go there and see that and experience it, it makes a whole different ball game for you. So that would be just a piece of my ideal classroom.
Wait, so you mentioned like that you wanted to have your students to have like iPads, which like goes to technology. Like, how else do you think technology should be used in a classroom?
Well, I think, well, again, depending upon the learner, maybe everyone can't use the iPad, but some form of technology, because we're in this age where technology is very important, and to prepare them for the future so that they can exist in the future. I say that, think of it this way, and with this quote, and I tell students, if you shortchange your education now, later in life you may find that you're short of change.
So, like what do you think about like the subject of technology in the classroom? Do you think it should be used? Do you recommend that like students use it?
I think it is. I mean, I think it's very important. I think right now we're kind of in a transition. We're trying to figure out where a lot of school systems are purchasing the technology, but sometimes they're not always sure how to use it properly.
How to use it, or how to maintain it.
You know, if you may have technology in the classroom, and maybe you try to use the computer for students to do work, but you want to make sure that they have access to all of that too at home, and that sometimes is a challenge. Not so much in Mansfield, but in Boston, I'm sure there's a lot of kids that don't have that. You know, and I think it has a lot of possibilities. So, they have cell phones.
Sometimes I think we look and we look at the big cities, but if you take inventory of check every kid. So okay, what do you have on you? Show me your technology. You'll find that a great many of the students have cell phones.
Yeah.
Actually, their cell phones are much better than mine. I'll trade them anytime. It'll be an upgrade for me. But technology is obviously just one tool. It's an important tool, and just where will these kids work one day? And so what do you need to prepare them to work in those fields? Just think about something as simple as, and I don't really mean to say this is simple, but an old car that didn't have all the computers in it. Now, as it's changed, look at the amount of technology just in the car, and what you need to do just to fix the car. Now the cars talk to you. You just plug in device and it tells you what's wrong with it. Imagine, we can't even do that yet. We have trouble telling people, oh, we're sick and this is what's wrong exactly.
Yeah, other than technology, the other thing that, and this is maybe unique to my school, it's time. In our school, because we don't have an MCAS test, social studies doesn't meet for the entire year. It meets for 2/3 of the year. We have trimesters. English and math, they get to have that for the whole year, but we don't have that except in APs. So it's very difficult for teachers to do a lot of the projects, things like that, because they're so taxed to cover the basic content. And we hope that that's going to change soon. But that's a resource that, it's very sad having the kids and then they're going to go away in March, where in other classes they get to have them through the end of the year. Or you get them in, September to December, then they leave you for a while, then they come back in March and finish the year with you. So that is a very difficult way. So that's a resource that that right now we're lacking.
And that may be it may be a lack of understanding because we're so data driven, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be, but I think that not at the expense that you're cheating students out of social studies, because I think you'll find that the rich contents in social studies provides the background for them being better ELA students.
Yeah, and I don't want to see, because I have young kids, I don't want to see their education to just be what they got on an MCAS score. Because I'm sure all of you, how old are you guys?
I'm 14.
Okay.
I'm in 8th grade.
Okay. So when you get to 10th grade and you're taking the high stakes MCAS, there's a certain segment of the population that might be worrying about passing it, but most of the kids say, I already know what it's going to be. We've been coached on this to death.
Well,
and right?
Yeah.
No,
But the
we're
MCAS
from
is a good
Connecticut
test.
too.
Oh, you're from Connecticut, so you must. Okay, so you
But-
have.
but you still
you have tests in
Yeah,
Connecticut,
we have
right?
CAP tests. We
You
don't,
have the
we
CAP
don't take
test.
the.
Yeah. So this may be
Okay. Yeah.
similar to what you're doing.
Yeah, same idea.
Yeah,
that
it's
there's
the same thing,
standardized
just-
testing.
yeah, it's standardized.
Yeah. And standardized testing has its role, but we don't want it to be taken so to such an extreme that that's all your education becomes, and that becomes the low bar is what you want, and that's not good for you guys, because there's a lot more to life than just passing a standardized test. As I say to my AP students, it's what you learn. It's not what you get on your score on the test. It's what you've learned through the year and how you've been able to grow.
Yeah, you may have started.
And that you laugh at my jokes.
You may have started at you may have started at a 1, and you got to a 2, but 2's still not passing for AP, and then finally another kid may have gone from a 1 to a 5, or 1 to a 4. But it's the progression that each student makes, and how you can apply what you've learned to not just survive, but to prosper out here.
Was this interview harder or easier than I thought it was going to be?
Oh, this was an interview? You didn't tell me that. Had I known it was an interview.
There's the signs down.
They took this.
No, I think
sign.
this was I think it was a very easy interview, because you're asking me questions about something that I love and something I do every day, so it's not difficult at all.
I cried in an interview last week, so I was ready if I had to cry this time.
Okay, so is there one question that you wish we asked but we didn't? At all? Anything we didn't cover that you want to share about your educational views?
Well, yes, there is one question.
What would that be?
You said this was radio, but I see a camera.
It's harsh.
Haha.
Wait, why did I say it was radio? Did I ever say that?
No, I said it.
Oh, actually, he said it because, but
No, I see what you mean by the
But-
feel
but-
of it though, with all the mics and stuff.
but no, I was just thinking you were asking a question about technology, and here you are using all of this wonderful technology,
I have no idea how to use it. But
and then you can go back to it. So it's a
Buttons.
so it's a great resource to go back to.
probably shouldn't touch it.
No, I thought you guys did a wonderful job on asking the questions, and even ending with that question. Hey, is there anything you want to ask me that you didn't ask? So
Can we
I
ask you a
thought that was good
question?
one.
Sure.
So what can we do as teachers to
Well,
do our job
you
well?
never wanna make your students like bored. We just went to a session with him. He was the presenter about body talk, and you can tell by what your student is doing. You could tell if they're engaged in the conversation or not. You can tell by like even like the angle that their feet are pointing in, if they want to leave the classroom or not. Like you really want to, like for our students, you want to hook them. Like humor, like you said, is a great way to do that. Like you never want to lose their attention, because then they'll lose interest, and they won't, like you have to get them excited about the subject, like no matter like what it is. Like,
But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I use a lot of uncle jokes. I'm big for uncles, and so a kid asked me, "Well, how many uncles do you have, Mr. Good?" And I said, "Well, as many as it takes to teach you." I'll make up an uncle. Maybe two kids are having a conflict in a group, and they can't quite determine who's the leader and stuff, or in their group. So I'll make up an uncle in a heartbeat. Uncle kick a lot, or uncle stay after school. So they get the message. Uncle no hands. My Uncle No Hands, we kind of make fun because he can't high five anymore. But Uncle No Hands, who learned, so Uncle No Hands, he learned first hand. When he could have learned second hand. But because he didn't learn second hand, he learned first hand, he lost both hands. Now he's Uncle No
I
Hands.
get it. All right.
If not, just laugh and you're giving them a hand.
I think that,
Okay, so that just about wraps it up. So, Mr. Good, Mr. Hocking, I really appreciate you coming down here to talk with us. So, this is basically the end of the conference, but enjoy the rest of your day here at NERC.
So when do we get to watch
NERC
this?
44.
This is tomorrow. It should be up. We had an internet problem.
You're going to put it online?
Brianna?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
normally.
Oh, good. I'll show it to